Good evening, everyone. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors for tonight's shir of Zera Shimshon on the Parsha this week. Although it's a double Parsha, Parshas B'chukosai, I don't believe the time will allow us to do a double Parsha. We'll just do it on Bahar. And hopefully you'll be as inspired as I am as well. We'd also like to thank our sponsors for tonight's shir. My dear cousin, Mordche, Leil Nishmas, our grandparents, Zainab Avisara, Shmario ben Avram, as well as Sarah Bas Baruch, as well as my dear friend, and he was a good friend of our family, Zedi Ablanovich, Ephraim Menachem Mendel, ben Yitzchak Yaakov, as well as my dear friend, Yehuda Mendel, for sponsoring Ephraim ben Yitzchak Tzvi, Leil Nishmas' grandfather's yahrzeit, who is in the upcoming few days, as well as his uncle, Zal Yitzchak ben Ephraim. I would also like to thank the sponsors who wanted me to make sure that it's anonymous. So thank you. We do appreciate your support. The Torah tells us, Bahar Sinai, you should know that the mitzvah Shemitah was given to us at Har Sinai. Rashi, straight off the bat, says, every mitzvah was given at Har Sinai. We don't need specifically Shemitah. Ma'in is Shemitah Eitzel Har Sinai. What's Shemitah doing next to Har Sinai? I just have to add parenthetically, whenever I come to this parsha, I always think of the Rosh Yeshiva of Yagdal Torah, where myself and Rosh Shmuel Stein went to yeshiva before it was cool, and to this specific yeshiva. When we went there, Rabbi Avram Teichman, who's Rosh Yeshiva there, he used to say every time he got to this parsha, he had a little bit of a tinge of bitterness. He said, why? He explained, because he came up with an idea to raise funds for the yeshiva. How so? He told people, if you were to rent karka, to rent land in the land of Eretz Yisrael, the karka is technically belonging to you. If the land belongs to you, then you're mechuyev, technically, trumas, meisers, all the mitzvahs that are min ha-Torah that you should fulfill. And if you tell people, and not as a gimmick, but you tell them for real, we will actually have oversight on your land, and you get to be mekayim, all these mitzvahs that are tuluyas bars that have to do with the land, and the yeshiva gets money, you're mekayim mitzvahs, it's a win-win-win-win, giving tzedakah, everyone wins. And a bunch of Rabbanim heard about it and said, Chadash Asr min ha-Torah. Any newfangled contraption that we have, out of the park. You cannot have it. Which always comes to the debate whenever we have some type of new idea in halacha. Is it innovation or is it a threat to Masera? Every single time. And some people, they get lucky. Like you'll have the Shabbos light guy or the guy with the Simchas Torah talis. No one ever said that, oh my gosh, Chadash Asr min ha-Torah. They just said, oh, that's smart. How come no one else thought of that? And sometimes people don't get lucky. And the most recent illustration of that was that a bunch of people, a bunch of chachamim came up with the following. I loved asking this question until they came up. Maybe they heard a shir from Torah anytime about this, which was that chickens don't really have a Masera, if you think about it. Where does it say anywhere that we have a Masera of chickens? Now you'll tell me, well, we have a Masera because there's somehow a chicken that we've been eating. Yeah, so everyone's been eating, so therefore it's okay. Where do we ever have a Masera that we have a tradition, you should eat chickens? So these people, what they did was, I have to hand it to them, they did a lot of their research, and what they did was, they lined up all the Rabbanim HaPeskim, which, whatever, maybe they gave them a little bit of money also, and they let them know that they have a direct Masera of a certain type of wild chicken. This wild chicken that they have, which is in the 1500s. They had pictures of it from Peskin that talk about it. So this was their chicken that they said unequivocally has a Masera. And they were going to invalidate all the other chickens that people have been eating for hundreds of years. So they got this ready to go. They were ready to roll it right out and ready to tell everyone that for the past couple of years, you were not eating kosher. Yes?
Kabetza? We didn't eat eggs from chickens? Or?
Oh, so now you're asking, how did we have omelets and all these different things? Exactly. So Rabbi Sternbach, shlita, he said basically what you're saying. Like he looked at the guys and said, are you out of your mind? He said, Klal Yisrael for hundreds of years have been eating treif. What are you saying? He said, the greatest Masera is, we've been eating it. So, I don't know. Where it comes from, I don't know.
Well, no, it's in the Gemara. Beitza. Like.
Beitza Tarnagailis, I understand. What's a Tarnagailis?
Well, I mean, how many...
Tarnagal.
What kind of fowl produces eggs?
Well, you have to have a Masera for it. You have to have a tradition for fowl. The Gemara Chulin says. So what Masera do we have? Yes?
The Gemara that talks about the egg size, the shape of the egg.
the size of the egg, it talks about etzba yisera, it talks about all these different things. That is correct. But the question is, you have to definitively point to this animal and say, this is a tarnagal. This is the thing. So what they were trying to do is marginalize everyone else and say, look at us, we are now going to save Klal Yisrael, and for the low price of $19.99, you could get yourself your, they were going to box in and corner the market, and they were going to make, excuse the term, but they're going to make a killing off of this venture that they had. And they were basically going to exploit this weakness of people thinking that for this entire time, they're going to get mahadrin mina mahadrin chickens. Problem is that they didn't line up the right poskim, and when they rolled it out, the big poskim are like, are you guys out of your minds? What are you talking about? And they totally pulled the plug on everyone, and they lost millions of dollars on their investment. They had a horrible ROI. It was really, really bad for them. A lot of them had to declare bankruptcy. Bad. It was really, really bad. So what you see from here is that a lot of times when there's certain things that are rolled out to the public, if it does not get a haskama, you're basically going up a mountain. It's not going to be very, very fruitful, and you should stop. So Rabbi Chaim Kanievski told me, he stopped when a few of the Rabbanim didn't like the idea. Fast forward, this is around, 25, 30 years later, they now do that you actually could rent your own karka, and you could be a part of owning land in Eretz Yisrael to fulfill the mitzvahs right now. It's not that much, by the way. You should just know. It's like a couple $100. You do that. And a few months ago, I actually drove by the farm where they have it. It's right near Ramat Beit Shemesh. They have the actual farms you could own. It's $1 minimum. If you want a little more, also they call you up and say, "We're harvesting the grapes right now. Would you like to pick them up? We're harvesting the wheat right now. Would you like to pick that up?" It's a real thing. It's a real heskem, a real shad they make. The point I'm trying to say is that there are certain mitzvahs that when it comes to Shemitah Eitzar Sinai. So he was thinking, "Mine is Shemitah Eitzar Sinai." What does Shemitah, the laws of Eretz Yisrael, have to do with Har Sinai? Limud Torah, Har Sinai. Meaning the idea that B'nai Torah are learning, what does that have to do? Meaning when you try to mix together the laws of Shemitah with people learning Torah, it's a little hard to do that. That was he was trying to have a play on the words. But the question begs itself, asks Zera Shimshon, what does that even mean? If anything, it's the opposite. He said many of the Farshim say it's the opposite. The main point of what we're going to be talking about in the beginning of this week's parsha is the laws of Shemitah. Parenthetically, I'm going to save you some money now. Besides for this idea of the chickens, I'm going to save you money also. I'm going to save you money from going to a Discovery seminar. Please, I'm sorry, Discovery. If I don't get invited, I know why. It's because of this. Discovery seminar, they have a whole series called Irrefutable Proof that Hashem created the world. And they make a whole series out of it. Basically, I'm going to boil it down to you in a few sentences. Ready for this? Watch. They basically say there are 3 irrefutable proofs Hashem himself could have made the Torah. Some Bible critics, they should all do tshuva, but there's some Bible critics out there that what they say is, Moshe Rabbeinu, he made up the Torah, he made up the story, and therefore he was saying what was common practice then, which was they do sacrifices, they build temples, they escaped by the skin of their teeth from getting harmed by this bad group of people called the Egyptians. So he was writing what was relevant then. But we all know times have changed, and therefore it is not relevant for us to know all these laws. Moshe Rabbeinu was talking about his time. This is what they were saying. So there are 3 irrefutable proofs that only Hashem could have authored the Torah and not a human being. Proof number 1. I'm going to go a little out of order because I'm going to save Shemitah for last. But proof number 1 was that when Hashem says you go up to El Regel 3 times a year, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, Lo yachmod ish es artzecha. No one will covet, no one will desire your land. Everyone knows you're going up to Eretz Yisrael to bring your Karban Chagiga, to bring your Shalmei Chagiga and all the Karbanis. You're going up. Everyone knows that. Millions of people will converge on Yerushalayim and come to Eretz Yisrael. Everyone knows when the holiday is. Everyone is talking about it, saying, I'm going to be leaving. Everyone knows that we're going to be gone. And yet, no one had the foresight to say, wait 1 second. The Jews are gone. This town is empty. Let's go in and we'll pull like what the Germans or any of the Europeans did after World War II was over. People came back to their homes, the survivors, and they staggered to their homes. They come knocking on their door and they see their next door neighbor, who they were friendly with, is living in their home. And they're like, Ludwig, can we please come in? I will call the police, get out. And there were times that people in Poland that literally got murdered. Lodge people actually got murdered. Can you imagine that? They survived the Holocaust of being in a concentration camp for some 5, some people even 6 years, from 1939 to 1945, only for them to come back to Poland, try to get their stuff back, and then they got murdered in cold blood. And then Polish people were like, what can we do? People were upset. You're in my home, what are you doing? and yet people understood that there was a time of Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, and no one wanted to take our land? How could that be? The answer is because Hashem gave us a guarantee. You go when I tell you to go. I promise you, no one's going to take your property. Who could make a promise like that? Only Hashem. Second proof is there's only 4 animals in the entire animal kingdom on planet Earth that only have one of the 2 kosher signs as a mammal. We know it has to have split hooves, chew its cud, which has to regurgitate its food. A pig has split hooves, does not regurgitate its food yet. When Mashiach comes, it will, which I'm going to be eating a lot of bacon in Mitzvah Hashem. Yes, I will. I'm very proud to say I will be doing that, okay? Bacon. Yes, a lot of it. Maple, with a lot of maple syrup, okay? You and me, right? Okay? So, a lot of bacon. So, it's going to have that the stomach's going to change. But until then, it has the split hooves, one kosher sign, but doesn't have the second kosher sign. Doesn't chew its cud, doesn't regurgitate its food. The other animals, the camel, llama, some people say hyrax, they say it's not really the hyrax, but the camel, llama, and the rabbit, the hare, they have 4 stomachs, they regurgitate their food, but they have paws. Although a camel looks like it's a split toe, it does not fully go up, just so you should know that, because otherwise people say, what are you talking about? I looked at a camel, it looked like it was a split toe. It does not fully go up like a cow all the way up, or a deer that it fully goes up, it goes halfway, 3/4 of the way. So basically it only has one of the 2 kosher signs. Now if Moshe Rabbeinu authored the Torah, he was only limited to an area, Middle East. I mean, how far could you go? Maybe even Far East. But he was definitely not in Australia. He knew about a duck-billed platypus. He knew about a capybara in Panama. He knew about all these various animals in Holland. How would he have known that? It's almost impossible to a person to know. It can't be a human being authored that. It must be Hashem who created heaven and earth. He tells you there's only 4 animals that have one kosher sign and another kosher sign. And this is thousands of years that the Torah has been given to us, and they've never broken that code. They've never found more than 4 animals, ever. They're trying to find it, but they won't. It's never going to be found, because Hashem created heaven and earth. That's proof number 2. And proof number 3 is where we come to this week's parsha. Hashem says, it comes to Shemitah, and you should know, when it comes to the laws of Shemitah, I promise you, you will have a bumper crop. Now, who in the world can make such a crazy promise unless you control heaven and earth? Or like the anti-Semites who are convinced the Jews control the weather, right? We control the weather. That's true. Hashem is right, 100%. I had that one time. I was with my wife. We were going segwaying in West Palm Beach. And the guy turns to me. I'm clearly Jewish. I'm wearing my yarmulke, my tzitzis out and everything. And the guy looks at me and goes, and we're going to go past the area over here where all the people who run the media and politics is. This is basically the Jewish row. So my wife was horrified when she heard that. Like basically, the guy straight up saying he's an anti-Semite. I said to the guy, he says, not only do we run the media and do we run the banks, but we also run the weather. He goes, finally, someone agrees. Someone knows that it's true. So you know it's true you run the weather. My wife's like, she's like hitting me, like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's true. We can decide. If we want it to rain, it will rain. If we don't decide it's going to rain, it won't rain. We literally do control the weather. They're right. The anti-Semites are right about that. So that's the idea. Mine is Shemitah, it's Har Sinai. What does Shemitah have to do with Har Sinai? What? No, we're talking about Shemitah. It should be Ma'in in Har Sinai, Eitzel Shemitah. Shemitah is the main idea here. We happen to be talking about Har Sinai. Hashem gave it Har Sinai, the laws of Shemitah. Shemitah is the main thing we're talking about. That's the main topic. And so all the Mefarshim ask the question, which is, why is it that we flip it around? It doesn't make any sense. Second question, there's only 3 questions. Second question, he says, is, Rashi tells you should just know, because all mitzvahs were said at Har Sinai. You should know, Rashi had a lot of things to do in life. One of the things he had to do was explain things to us that if we did not know, Rashi has to illuminate for us. So if Rashi is telling you something that you would pull over a 5th grader and say to him, tell me, what happened at Har Sinai? And the kid goes, Hashem gave us the Torah? You know, you're saying exactly like Rashi did. If you think that's what Rashi was coming to tell me, you missed the boat. That's not what Rashi's doing. Rashi has to tell you something that if I did not know this parish, I did not know this explanation, I would be completely lost. I would not know what's going on over here. And by the way, my Rabbi Chaim says, if you really, really want to appreciate Rashi, and I say parenthetically, in Mishnah Berurah too, it's the same idea. If you really want to appreciate a Rashi, go through a Gemara. Even take an art scroll. Go ahead, I challenge you to do that. You'll be blown away. Try this one time. Just one time, try this. Learn a Gemara and try to understand the basic understanding, whether it's your chavrusa or yourself. Try to understand it. And then cover over Rashi with your hand. And then on the side have a piece of paper and have somebody, a made-up friend in your mind, that you're going to write a parish. You're going to write an explanation explaining and anticipating how would Rashi explain what's going on right now. You write down your interpretation, and then you lift up your hand, and then you compare notes. You look at what you wrote, and you look at what Rashi wrote. You will be blown away. I promise you'll be blown away. Because you're going to look at Rashi, you're like, what is he talking about? Why did he have to write that? Or why didn't he write that? There's sometimes Rashi doesn't write something. Or sometimes Rashi wrote something completely that, like, where, why? What, this has no place here. What are you doing? Or why are you... Because Rashi anticipated, there were certain anticipatory sets that Rashi understood in this Gemara that he's basically telling you without telling you what you have to understand. That's why people spend their whole life learning Torah, surrounded with Svarim. Why is that? Because Torah is endless. You have to understand what is going on. Why did you say? Why did you not say something? So Rashi tells us you should know this was told to us at Har Sinai. As they say in Yeshiva, shkoyach. Thank you very much. Rashi, I don't need you to tell me that. I know, of course, it said at Har Sinai. Why would I think not? Third question is, why Shemitah? And Rashi tells you know why? Because they're klalosein, pratim, udiktodekein. There are general rules, details, and fine points that you have in Shemitah, and just like you have that in Shemitah, so to Hashem let you know that when I give you over a rule, I give you over a rule, then I give you details, and I give you the fine-tuned points of the details as well. That is every single 612 mitzvahs. Every single mitzvah. The Torah tells you, for example, keep kosher. What's kosher? How do you keep kosher? Can something not become kosher? When can a thing become kosher or not? I remember when a certain rabbi by the name of Rabbi Boteach, when he came out with a certain book called Kosher Something, when he came out with that book, I was in yeshiva then, and when that came out, I was in Telz when this came out. I remember I was next to David Eisenberger when this happened. He doesn't remember, but I remember it. And we were sitting there. We were online at Rini's going doot doot. Remember Rini's, right? It goes doot doot doot. Or you were Mark's or Rini's? Okay, but anyways, doot doot doot. Suddenly the guy turns to us and he sees we have this giant vat of kosher pickles. He goes, "Oh, I read Rabbi Boteach's book on kosher, whatever it was, and you're buying kosher pickles. Tell me, what else do you have that's kosher? You've got kosher this, kosher pickles." And I told David Eisenberger when I said that, I said, from now on, the guy changed my entire premise. Whenever I see kosher pickles, I think of that every single time. Think of that every time. Kosher, what's kosher pickles? Like, what does that even mean? Like, how do you make something kosher if it's not? So it's, all joking aside, when does something become kosher? When does not become kosher? So there's a rule, there's the pratim, and there's the diktum. Like, what is that? What does this mean? What's Rashi telling me? Asked the Zera Shimshon. And remember, by the way, we always say this. It should be a schus l'niyas shama of the Zera Shimshon. Whenever he says a yesod, which is like, wow, this is something you have to carry over for the rest of your life. And it's a game changer. So what is going on? I'm telling you, when you're going to walk away from this year, you're going to be like, wow, what the Zera Shimshon did from this one Rashi. It's going to be unbelievable. You're going to be as blown away as me. So we have to understand, what does it mean that you have the klal, prat, and diktuk? What does that mean? Before he attempts to give an answer and explain what all those three things is, he masterfully brings the Yalkut. The Yalkut quotes the following, that the number 7 for Hashem is considered very chaviv, it's considered very precious to Hashem. Just like the 7th day is Shabbos. And he says the 7th month of the year is Tishrei. And he says, and the 7th of the lineage from Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, then Levi, then Amram, Yitzhak, and Amram, and then Moshe. Moshe is number 7. So he was the 7th. David HaMelech was the 7th child. Each one of these, he illustrates, there's number 7 is a very big number for Hashem. And Hashem says it's chaviv alai, it's considered precious to me. Why is that? He says because the number 7 you have to know is that when you tap into 7, you're tapping into what's called teva. Once you tap into teva and you harness it for what it's meant for, Hashem says, I will give you such blessing when you understand what 7 is about. Now you look at it, you're like, what does that even mean? That sounds like very esoteric. It sounds like if you were the Baba Sali, putting the Jabalia over your head and going like this, going, the number 7 is chaviv. Everyone's like, ooh, wow, I have no clue what he was talking about, right? And then they just move you on and you're like, I have no clue what that means, right? So you don't understand what that means. What does this mean? Says the Zera Shimshon the following. Now watch this. Remember I told you, within Seva, it's in the confines of Teva. He says the following. The klal, ready for this? There's a lot of P's. The klal is whatever you do is predestined. It's predetermined. Meaning, he says like this. Har Sinai was chosen. Why was it chosen as the place for us to accept the Torah? He says, because it was the most humble of all mountains. Who made it humble? Or my favorite is, if it's a mountain, how could it be humble? Think about that. It's sort of like, it's like a famous line from Shmuel Kunda. The guy says, I want a top piece from the bottom of the meat, or a middle piece from the bottom, or a top piece from the top. Like, what? How do you even slice that? If you're a mountain, you're a mountain. What does that mean? Bigger mountain, smaller mountain. If you're in Florida, anything above 10 feet, that's called a mountain, right? You know, so it's Mount Trashmore, right? Well, what does that mean? A mountain? What if it's a humble mountain? Humble? What are you talking about? So says the Medrash says, really, Har Sinai was a gigantic mountain. It sounds like from the Yalkut, it sounds like from the Medrash, it was actually bigger than Everest, bigger than K2, it was bigger than Kilimanjaro, bigger than any of these mountains. So then the question begs itself, wait a second, Har Sinai is now in the top 10. It's not in these places that these people go and they die for. Like, and we don't even know where Har Sinai is, which is a cool part, by the way. There's a reason for that why we don't know. Because it's irrelevant. Hashem gave it to us, and we carry the Torah here. Har Sinai is here. It's right here. Hashem's saying, I don't care. It's irrelevant where the spot is. It's now in you. I gave it to you. Now you do what you want with it. And Hashem says, you should know this mountain was really a giant mountain. But then Hashem says, you know what? I'm going to lower a mountain. Which mountain here wants to lower itself for something really big? And the Medrash says, Har Sinai stepped forward, like the Yidden, like the Jews said, and they said, Nasa v'nishma. Hashem, if you're offering it, I'm all in. Hashem says, you choose that you are listening to me. Well, you know what? I'm going to make it look like you're low, but ultimately you will have the last laugh. And the one that laughs best. And Har Sinai, because it lowered itself, because it made itself humble, therefore it was the one that was chosen. So therefore they say like this, Har Sinai was really big, but it understood that Hashem has a plan for me. I'm predestined for greatness. If a person understands you're predestined for greatness, Hashem has a plan for you, you're not going to get all wrinkled out of sorts. You're going to be like, okay, I don't know why this is happening to me, but you know something? There's a reason why. I have no idea why. Hashem chose me for this. I don't know why. And people who are honest will tell you. Anyone who's honest will tell you, yes, I've had success in my life, and Hashem's been very good to me and all that. Or we've had trouble. Everyone has that adversity that they've had to overcome. But yet, a person has to say to themselves, it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the fact that Hashem chose me for some mission, and I don't know why He chose me. And that's not humility, that's honesty. You have to know you're predestined. Har Sinai understood that. And they say, the Medrash says that all other mountains had Avodah Zarah served on it, except Har Sinai. Why? Because since it made itself humble, it took itself out of that lineage, therefore no one served it. It was basically in the background, no one thought anything about it. And then when the time came, Hashem chose that mountain, because it understood there was there for a purpose. You should be like that too. You should say, Hashem, I don't know why you're choosing me for this. I don't know why, but you obviously are choosing me for something special. I know that. I feel that. I always tell this to people, and I've said this multiple times on Torah. Anytime I'm going to say it again. You shouldn't watch movies, but if you have to, there are two you must watch. If you are doing it anyways. If you have to and you're wasting your time anyways, you must watch it. Why? Because if secular people who are not even Jewish, if they get it and they understand these lessons, then for sure it should blow your mind. First one is The Matrix, like not everything you see is reality. And the second one is, and also it's a cool scene of going there with the bullets, but besides for that, you also have The Truman Show. And that's basically a guy, reality TV, before reality TV became even a thing, that basically they adopted this baby, and then they were showing you what his life was like, 24/7, most popular show on planet Earth. All the cameras are on him. They literally rented an entire world basically for this guy, but they had to make up a whole story why he couldn't leave because he was afraid he was going to drown. Make a long story short, they're going through it. Now I have to just admit, the first time I ever saw it, I walked in the middle. So when they did the reveal, I'm not going to spoil it for you if you didn't see it. When they do the reveal that basically he's on a movie set, he was so lost. And I was lost too. I'm like, what is going on? And you should know something, that's going to be our life too. And basically the premise is that this guy's walking around, he doesn't realize the entire world around him is paid actors. So I tell people the same thing too. You don't know, for all you know, I'm a paid actor by the big boss up there. Your friends, your family, all them, they're paid actors. You are the greatest reality TV show up there in Shemayim. Not only that, they got a ticker on the bottom of what you're thinking. Mitzvah, 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 not exactly a mitzvah, whatever, all that at the bottom, and Malchim are going to stay there. They're eating their spiritual popcorn or pita locas, fabulously sponsored food. Thank you, Yochai. So the people are there, they're eating it and whatever, they're enjoying it. In Shemayim, they're enjoying. So you see that Har Sinai understood it was predestined. It understood that no matter what's going around you, that's all background noise. That's not what's going to happen. And I'm already prepared that Hashem is going to put His Shekhinah on me, and therefore that is above understanding. Therefore, Ma'in in Shmita Eitzel Har Sinai, the klal is this is predestined. Meaning, Shmita tells me whatever you're going to make, buddy. You got to leave the land fallow. Well, what am I going to do? Whatever you're going to make, you're going to make. Just like when a person walks into Shabbos. I got this business deal. I have to do this, I have to do that. Stop. Shavas. Stop. You have to stop. And you have to connect to your neshama now. What do you mean? But I'm going to help so many tzedakahs and I'm going to be able to learn more. Stop. You stop. It's predetermined what you're going to make. Of course you have to make hishtadlus, but you have to understand, it's predetermined. Ma'in Shmita, it's now up to you, Hashem. Eitzel Har Sinai. Har Sinai understood that as well. It's predetermined, it's predestined. The prat is that you should know that whatever is going to grow forth will grow forth, even if you have to make hagbala. You have to make some type of form that you're making a boundary. Kal Yisrael had to do that. They had to make this boundary around Har Sinai and saying, we're not going in. Hashem, even though you're giving us the Torah and we want to be close to you, but they say Torah is compared to a fire, just like a fire. If you get too close, you'll get burnt. But if you're at a safe distance, it's good. That's like that too with Torah. If you do not respect Torah and you're chummy with Torah and you're like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Whatever. What's going on? Ha ha. It could burn you. I'll say an amusing story. I don't know if you were there when this story happened, Natan, but the story was, so when I was teaching my boys in LEC, Golubavitch, so when I was teaching them, I just told the story to Rafi. I don't think he was there when he heard the story, but tell this story to him. So when I was teaching the boys, I said to them, we were talking about a certain thing, and then one of the boys said something very, very insolent, very, very chutzpahdik. I mean, it was like above the, like. So I told the boy, I said, excuse me, I said, normally I don't talk like this, but I said, I just want to let you know who you're talking to. I have smicha from Beis Medrash Kavaya, which is probably one of the greatest yeshivas on earth right now. I said, I'm learning here, I'm a teacher in Lubavitch, and not only that, you should know, I'm also a Rav of a shul, a Sephardic shul too, the only Sephardic shul in Miami Beach, besides the Bukharians. The only Sephardic shul in Miami Beach at that time. So the guy goes, no, you're not. I don't believe you. I said, you don't believe me? Go ahead, check, come. I say, if you're in Miami Beach, you're more than welcome to stop in. So they go, we're going to call your bluff, Rabbi. You always tell us, call the bluff, we'll call the bluff on you. I'm like, okay, I'm looking forward to seeing you. This is the times we daven, looking forward to seeing you. Okay. And lo and behold, a whole entourage of guys from my class showed up. So they come into the class, into the room. They think they're in the classroom. And they go, hey, Rabbi Sova, what's up? How you doing? Hey. And they go over. Now, if you go over to a Sephardic rabbi and you get chummy with him, the old guard, they're going to walk over to you and they're going to whack you. So the old guard came over to these guys. They went right in the face and says, don't you dare to talk to our rabbi like this. Where is your kavod? You talk like this in Bet Knesset to our rabbi? What's going on over here? And they were about to pummel them. They'll give me a lecture. Should they pummel them? And I'm like, no. And these guys were like shaking when they saw that. They're like, oh my gosh. And I was looking there behind them and I was like, don't mess, right? So here you have to have Hagbala. You're not chummy with the Torah. Yeah, me and the Torah, we're good. We're buddies and stuff like that. You can't do that. Hagbala, you have to do that. If you go past the gvul, Chas v'shalom, a person will die. Shemitah too. You can't do anything once it starts Shemitah. There is a gvul, there's a boundary, there's a process. Furthermore, someone who's shomer Shemitah doesn't go into Golus, the Gemara tells us. Kaisel didn't keep Shemitah for a number of times, they had to go into Golus. Someone who's loymei Torah doesn't go into Golus. I always say parenthetically, why is that? Because learning Torah is not easy. Golus is not easy. When you subject yourself to learning Torah, Hashem negates and takes off whatever suffering you were supposed to have went into that sugya that you just went into. Whatever difficulty you're going to have. The more you focus. My Rebbe, Yisrael Brock, he told me, he's done this with multiple people throughout the world, and he told me a few people here in Miami Beach that he did it to as well. He told people the following. He asked the guy, tell me, what do you do for a job? He says, I do X and Y, whatever. How many hours do you do? What do you mean? Rabbi, I do 8 hours a weekday except for Friday. Really? That's a long time. Tell me honestly, do you need 8 hours? He says, no, honestly I don't. I can do it in 6. He says, okay, from now on, you're working only 6 hours. He said, Rabbi, I can't just do that. He says, you're doing it 6 hours, and I promise you, not only are you going to make equal to what you've made, you're going to make more. Because what's going to happen is, what they call the Pomodoro technique, you're going to be more efficient in your time, and you're going to see, you're going to actually be able to learn. And he says, I want you to start writing. I want you to be mechaber svarim. It's like, me? I'm not mechaber svarim. I'm telling you, my jaw dropped when he told me how many people are doing this program. He says, some of these guys are doing 3, maybe 2 hours a day of work when they were used to be doing 8. Do you understand what that is? He says, they come in, they are so lean and clean, and they're doing what they need to do, and they're running back to the base medrash. Anytime they have free time, that's what they're doing. Why? Because I got to build my spiritual portfolio, which is forever, ever, ever. Right? This is what is going to be on forever. This is something that you have to think about. And he says a person has to understand, when you throw yourself in and make